Hello, my name is Dan Christensen. I publish the Trimet Confidential blog, and I am sort of a private advocate for bus operators and train operators at Trimet in Portland, Oregon. On the night of April 24th, a great tragedy befell our city as the Trimet operator struck 5 people crossing the street, killing 2 and injuring 1. Fred Hansen, the head of our Trimet organization, said this, seemingly inexplicable. I believe this is wrong. It's time to tell the truth. I believe it's important to tell the truth. It is explainable. It is understandable. This idea that it's magic or that it can't be understood is just wrong. Because there are a lot of things here that weren't at fault. Alcohol, drugs, texting, speeding, distractions. Those were all the media darlings not at fault. You see, no one should fear the truth. Everyone has to gain by knowing the truth. Everyone deserves the truth. Our city deserves the truth. The families of those who are impacted definitely deserve the truth, not some lie that it can't be understood. Let's start with the location of the accident. 6th Avenue, Gleason, and Broadway. This is what you need to know. The lanes of travel are simple. For 6th Avenue, it's one way. Gleason is one way. Broadway is two way. That's it. Very simple to understand. The 9 route, which is the bus that was being driven, goes like this. Comes up 6, turns left on Gleason, which is one way, turns left on Broadway, which is two way. On the night in question, and this is the linchpin. This is the one thing that if this doesn't happen, the accident doesn't happen. This is the crux of it. Now I know people want to start from the corner when the bus driver takes off, but this is where the linchpin is, and it happens innocently by someone who requests a passenger who has gotten on the bus and requests a courtesy stop. A courtesy stop is when a bus stops at a place it doesn't normally stop. So instead of doing the normal turnaround, the 9 operator comes around the corner, pulls across the street, lets the passenger off. Courtesy stops, we do them all the time. They're a great thing. They're a way we can really help people out. At that end of the mall, it happens because there's a lot of companies down there that people need off on. So uh, the bus driver is out of profile, I guess you would say. And when the bus driver goes to come back into the traffic flow, they split the lane. Now, this is frustrating. All commercial drivers split lanes. Big rigs, everything have to split lanes when they come into an intersection that they have to turn left on. This operator splits a lane. Their bus would sort of look like this. Back from the intersection, slightly angled over, letting the cars know behind them what they're going to do. Now, the usual lane split looks something more like this. We'd be on this side, we'd be pulling out to come around on a bigger corner. But these are now, let's look at the contributing factors. And because of the positioning of the bus, these things contribute to the problem. Not the linchpin, but the contributors. First, let's talk about blind spots. All vehicles have blind spots. Even in a motorcycle, you got a helmet on, you have blind spots. Now, what causes blind spots? That's an important question for you to understand this whole accident. Well, you can see here, posts on the window, posts for the door. You have the door itself. Side posts. Even the center post in the window creates a blind spot. Here's an example of what blind spots look like. They cast shadows outwards from the bus operator. But there's something more important here, and that's for you to understand the bus model 2500, because that's what was being driven. Made by New Flyer, built in 2000, 2001. It has the worst seat at Trimet. These seats do not go up all the way. They are uncomfortable. They slowly lose air and shrink down. They are a pain on drivers and a bane. Now, I've set this 2500 seat with a piece of paper to represent the head of the operator. The seat didn't even go down all the way, so this is about where the head would be. I went outside the bus with my camera to take some photos so that you would understand what we're talking about, and specifically this spot right here, the post and mirror. And if you put this mirror so close to the post, you can't see between them. So you have an area that looks sort of like, well, sort of like this. that creates a blind shadow. Now, when you are inside looking out, you can see that blind area right there. It's very obvious to see. Now, it's quite big. So imagine taking a shoebox, putting it at the end of a yardstick, and angling out about a 45-degree angle from your forward vision. And that's about the blockage you would have when you're driving. Now, this is not insurmountable, but it does cover a big area. So from the inside, I went way to the right till I could see the paper on the chair. Take this picture. But look how far to the left I have to go till I can see where that operator's head is. Remember, when you see the operator's head, the operator sees you. I have to go pretty far over to the left in order to be seen. So once again, if I'm standing back, like across the street at a crosswalk, this covers me. Now, there's a myth at Trimet, and that is rocking and rolling. Moving back and forth in your seat will solve the blind spot. That works to the right, but to this blind spot, it doesn't work. Now, I'm tall, much taller, so when I rock and roll, I move a lot farther. But here is the shot. Now, I'm looking up high. I'm kind of standing up in the seat. Now I'm going to show you when I rock and roll at the normal bus driver level that she was at. See from the back of the red car? And then we're going to lean forward and show you from the other angle exactly what's seen to just back of the blue car. Now that's a huge area in between there that is not covered by rocking and rolling. If you're an average size woman, I'm a 6 foot tall guy, it works some, but doesn't eliminate all of it. And if you're an average size woman, there's quite a bit in area there. If you're the size of this operator, you can't even tell. I had this guy standing in my blind spot there when I did the rock and roll. You couldn't see him. So this blind spot, specific to the 2500 because of the low chair and this operator's height, creates a blind spot like this. Again, you want to simulate this? Put a shoebox at the end of a yardstick, stick it out about a 45-degree angle, put your eye level right on top. And that is what you'd have to drive with all day. Now, normally, when we're driving, this is not as big an issue as you think. Because you're straight in your lane. You say you come up to a normal intersection, that blind spot's over here. And I can see people entering and leaving my blind spot. And as I turn, that blind spot narrows up. And when I turn from across the street, I can see people entering and leaving. And so it really doesn't pose a problem. In fact, a lot of drivers would hardly even notice it. You could drive for years and never have this affect you. So now that you know a little more, let's look at the specific incident. Because unless you have this understanding of blind spots and how this 2500 affects you, you're not going to know. So you hear a lot of press about the driver driving over 2 lanes to make this turn. Well, had the driver pulled up to that line to do exactly what they say, drove over 2 lanes, look, the blind spot would have left them clear view of the people standing on the side. So this is not the case of a driver turning over 2 lanes. And by the way, this is a driver turning over 1 lane in a parking lane. But had they positioned themselves like this and done the wrong thing, look, they would have seen it. And had they pulled up square to the intersection like we normally do when we're turning that corner, which you can't do if you do the courtesy stop, they would have seen that person standing there. But because of the angle and because they stop back of the line like we're supposed to, we're not supposed to crowd up to the line. We're supposed to stop back of the line. Their blind spot covered like this. And this is where the issue began. Because of the courtesy stop and the attempt to get back into the normal lane of flow, all these things that normally help you as a driver, that are normally good driver behavior, begin to work against you and mount up and create a critical problem. So good driving habits hurt you in this case. Let's look at what happens. Sorry about that cut there. So good driving didn't work. If that driver would have punched the gas as soon as that light turned green, they would have seen the people. Then we're not supposed to do that. If they would have turned over 1 lane, as I showed you, they would have saw the people. If they would have pulled up too far to the crosswalk, they would have saw the people crossing the street. If they hadn't checked the intersection and just went out, they probably would have saw the people crossing the street. So this is really a problem because this driver did so many things right. And when they makes a turn, the people are moving approximately the same speed as a bus, and then there's an intersection. Let's look at the things she did right. She did a courtesy stop, right. Split the lane, right. Even smooth acceleration, right. Stop back the line, right. Even left her window open so she could hear people, but there were so many people getting out of the bus.